What's going on, hustlers? Back at you guys with another video. Today we're going to be discussing the 5 lessons that I learned from my first government contract. It's almost like when you're a kid and you stick your hand on a stove and your mom tells you, she's like, yeah, no, don't touch it because, you're going to get burned. But you almost just have to get burned before you realize, hey, I probably shouldn't touch a hot stove again. So don't stick your hand on the hot stove. Learn from my mistakes. So number 1, you want to give yourself a long lead time. And if you've watched any of the other podcasts that I've been on, if you've been at any speaking engagement that I've spoken at, you've definitely heard me tell this story. One of the first companies that I worked with made this mistake, and then I almost made this mistake myself. So you want to give yourself a long lead time. My threshold for everything is 120-day minimum lead time that I will bid on a contract. I will tell DLA, hey, I'll get this to you in 4 months. If, let's say, the vendor says, hey, we got to manufacture this and it's going to take 100 days, I add on another 100 days to that. The reason why I do that is because I see it happen all the time. Stuff is subject to prior availability, so another company might come and buy it. And then when it's time for you to buy from that vendor, they get sold out. Or shipping issues happen all the time. So one client, Cornell, he actually won his first couple contracts with McMaster Car, and then he placed a bulk order, and that stuff was supposed to be in stock, but for whatever reason, McMaster Car was having some shipping issues. They sent him a portion of it in a couple of days, and it took him 2 months to get the remainder of his stuff. During my first contract, we bid something with, I think it was like a 60-day lead time. The contract or the material ended up getting there on day like 42, so we had 18 days to package, ship, and inspect. While I was also managing other stuff. So you never want to be operating with a gun to your head. You never want to be racing against the clock. You want to be comfortable. You want to have enough time to check, double check, and then triple check your work. So you always want to give yourself a long lead time. Add 100 days to whatever your vendor gives you if it's longer than 100 days. And then even if it's stock, even if it's in your backyard, you can get it, the next day. Give yourself 120 days. The first company that I ever worked with, she won a contract, but she was overseas. She was in Croatia, and then she came back, and you can't access dibs when you're outside of the country. So she didn't know she won her contract until after the fact. Or she knew, but she couldn't access dibs and then see what it was, who she was getting it from. So by the time she came back, she bid it with only a 14-day lead time. She was gone for 12 days. By the time she called me, it was day 13, and she was like, hey, what do I do? I'm going to be late. Can you help me fix this? And I was like, it's your first contract. You're past the 10 calendar day threshold. So if you cancel within 10 calendar days, it doesn't impact your Spurs score. But she was past that threshold, and then she got burned for it. So always give yourself a long lead time. Number 2, please have your paperwork in order. And what I mean by this is, your traceability. So something on letterhead from the vendor, that could be a packing slip. It could be a certificate of conformance. It could be a letter of authorization saying, I don't know, let's say it's Best Buy, and Best Buy is selling, HP printers or something. You want like a packing slip or something from Best Buy stating, hey, we're giving you these HP printers. Or if it's not, a big name brand distributor like that, you want some kind of letter of authorization stating that that company is able to sell that stuff to you. You want to make sure you've got your purchase orders all good to go, your sales orders, your packing slips. You want to make sure that you've got your vendor quote in order. And then the quote that you submitted to DLA. And then even when you invoice the government, you want to make sure that you've got that downloaded and PDF'd and then printed out as well and put into a folder. We've had it probably a couple times now. I would say about 6 times where DLA is like, hey, yeah, we paid you on this. And then we're like, no, we submitted an invoice. We never got a ACH electronic transfer into our account. And, DLA is human. The people in that financing department, they're human beings. They make mistakes too. So you always just want to have that readily available so that way you can be like, hey, listen, I invoiced you guys for this and never got paid for it. And then sometimes DLA will be like, hey, we never even received these. But if you go into VSM and then you print out your DSSS packing slip and your FedEx label, and you can be like, hey, listen, I shipped this to you. You guys were paying for the shipping. You guys want to check in with FedEx. So that kind of absolves you of any responsibility. So that's number 2. Make sure all your paperwork is in order. And everybody in our class or in our boot camp, they always get about 5 documents, and it's like a checklist of everything that you need to have. in your folder to pass an audit, because DCMA at some point in time will conduct an audit of your firm. So if they come back and they want 10 contracts and they're going to be from different points over your company's lifespan, you want to make sure that you just have that material ready to go, because if you've ever been audited by the IRS or anybody else, then work kind of stops. Everything slows down when you're looking for stuff and trying to compile the folder, rather than just being able to give it to them and being like, hey, here's everything, leave me alone, do whatever you want with the information. Number 3, take inspection pictures. So you want to take pictures of the box that the material comes in. You want to take pictures of you opening up the box once you're looking at the material, to ensure that if anything is damaged, you can send that back to the vendor and be like, hey, listen, I didn't even do anything to it, and it came damaged, or I'm missing some parts. Here it is. And then again, sometimes you ship stuff to DLA and they're like, hey, we only got, let's say, 9 units. You're supposed to send us 10 units. If you take pictures of those 10 units as you're packaging and shipping them, you can be like, no, we sent you 10. I don't know what you guys did with, the additional unit that you claim to have lost. That absolves you of any responsibility. That's kind of how you get out of that pickle. Number 4, account for the cost of packaging. So I made this mistake on our first contract. I think we ended up making, I don't know what it was, $60 a unit. But we did not account for the cost of buying the little baggies that they had to go in. We didn't account for the cost of buying the paper that we used to print out our labels. So that brought our profit down to, I think, about $12. So that's a 20%, a 15, ended up going from 100%, which was $60, to $12, which ended up being less than a quarter of that margin, just because we didn't account for packaging. So you always want to take that into consideration. Number 5, you want to talk to your point of contact on the contract. And oftentimes people will see what's listed in box A underneath the DODAC, and DODAC stands for Department of Defense Activity Address Code. So people will see that and they'll be like, oh, that's my POC. And then you'll email them and they'll never respond. It's actually a little bit lower on section A, where you will see who's responsible for, helping you fulfill that contract. Or I don't want to say responsible for, because you're responsible for it, but who is, the point of contact on that contract. And you want to talk to them frequently and you want to talk to them often. So the 3 key pillars of building a relationship in government contracting with the people on the other side, whether that be the buyer, the contract specialist, or the contracting officer, are these people are going to do business with people that they like and with people that they trust. Those are obviously very important. Now, the third thing is people that they remember. So these people have hundreds of solicitations on their desk and they deal with hundreds of companies at any given time. So you want to make sure that they remember you. And the reason for that is, 1, they're going to allocate contracts to you when they see your name come up in the list of companies that bid on it. And then 2, if they remember that you performed super well in a contract, then they're going to reach out to you as you start to develop, more proficiency in doing business with DLA. And then they're going to be like, oh, can you get this for me? I remembered you got these bearings for me last time. And then, you've sold this stuff before. So we know that you're trustworthy. We know your quality assurance is up to par and all that good stuff. So you want to make sure that they remember you. So that way, when future opportunities come up, you are kind of on their short list of companies that they reach out to. So just to recap, the 5 lessons that I learned from my first government contract are: give yourself a long lead time that's going to give you ample time to receive, package, and inspect the material. Number 2, you want to have all your paperwork in order so you can pass any audits and then absolve yourself of any, I don't want to say responsibility, but you're essentially covering your butt, if you will, by making sure you have a paper trail. Number 3, you want to take inspection pictures, so that way if anything goes wrong, when the vendor ships the stuff to you, you can send it back to them and be like, hey, listen, this is what I got. And then when you are shipping to DLA, you can be like, hey, listen, I sent you those 10 and they were undamaged. Number 4, you want to account for the cost of your packaging. And then number 5, you want to talk to your point of contact on a contract, because you want them to like you, trust you, and also, very importantly, remember you. So those are the 5 lessons that I learned from my first contract. I hope this is insightful. I hope this kind of alleviates any future mistakes that you guys are going to make. So thank you guys for tuning in. Like, comment, subscribe, and share this with somebody else who might find it valuable.